and this part is not just an American thing. The same kind of like outline of grappling with history can be applied to the statues that Steve talked about in England. You know, with Churchill, you know, there's a real debate about Churchill as a historical figure. And you say, well, he was the driving force behind stopping Hitler, and so for this, he should be honored in perpetuity. And then,
Debatable, but yes,
well,
yeah.
but this is the argument that's being made.
It
And
is,
then,
yeah.
and the weird part of that argument is that folks that are saying we should leave the statue as it is are also saying, why can't these protesters see that historical figures are complex? They're complex figures. To which you can say, sure, why can't you also acknowledge the other very awful parts of his complex of his complex history? So you talked about about India.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the thing that is of consistent debate is in 1943, there was a famine in Bengal. Without going too far into the details of this, there have been various historical, even even meteorological studies to talk about the causes of this famine. And the reality is that, like, you know, folks arguing in favor of keeping the statue as it is, saying, look, he's a complex figure. It wasn't his fault. He had to manage the war in Europe, which was a much more pressing concern. Anybody talking about pragmatic politics and international relations recognizes that it's the British Empire and Britain had to survive, et cetera, et cetera. And for me, not just as someone of Indian extraction, I'd say the following: yeah, but why were they in Bengal in the first place? Right? Like it's like this very like nuanced argument that
it wasn't by accident.
Right. It's like this very like nuanced argument about like the glories and wonder of Churchill and the importance of his heroism in leadership in World War II, and how through prose and grit and seeing Hitler for who he was able to push forward the cause of freedom. But then we also say, well, why did he even have to manage food in Bengal? Why was this a management issue that you're now defending him for? Like, are we going to walk past the millions of deaths in India over several centuries? Are we going to?
Yeah.
Why are we walking past the part where before the British came in, the Indians were responsible for double-digit percentage of global GDP, and by the time they left, it was less than 1% of global GDP.
That doesn't sound good at all. That sounds terrible.
Right, it's a terrible deal for the Indians. But this is kind of it. Is this historical grappling is happening in the streets, and the folks that are saying like, well, hold on, the folks in the street aren't grappling with the complexities, is to say, well, you're also choosing which parts of the complexities you actually want to grapple with. Like, it's actually a very large and messy problem, even when you're talking about the Confederate monuments. Like, and there are successful cases in the US of taking down Confederate monuments, like in New Orleans, like going through legal systems. There's ways of doing this. In Birmingham, which doesn't really exist until after the Civil War, there shouldn't be Confederate monuments. and yet there are. And so this
Didn't you guys lose? You lost. What's going on here? Yeah.
Wait, hold on. You didn't even lose because you weren't there. You didn't even go there.
You didn't even exist.
Right.
You lost, and then like decades and centuries later, everybody's acting like they won, including the people who actually won. So it's frustrating.